Switch off the lights. Plunge yourself into absolute darkness. For us, it's a moment of inconvenience, but for our most ancient ancestors, it was a state of being, a world ruled by an eternal night. They lived for 1,000,000 years without the single greatest invention in human history. So how did they survive a world where every shadow held a monster, and the setting of the sun was a nightly death sentence? This is life before fire. Our story begins in the deep past, long before Homo sapiens ever walked the earth. We must travel back over 1.5 million years to the sun-scorched savannas of Africa, the world of an early human ancestor, Homo erectus. They were pioneers, the first of our lineage to stand tall and walk out of the forests into the open plains. But this new world of opportunity was also a world of unprecedented danger, and they faced it without a flicker of flame. This was not a world we would recognize. The plains teemed with predators that would dwarf their modern cousins. Giant hyenas capable of crushing bone, and saber-toothed cats like Meganterion, armed with teeth like daggers. Against these titans, Homo erectus was small, slow, and weak. Their only advantages were their budding intelligence, their simple stone tools, and the power of their small, tight-knit groups. In a world without fire, life was ruled by a single, unforgiving clock: the sun. Daylight was the only shield they had, a precious window of relative safety to find food, water, and shelter. The moment the sun began its descent, a primal urgency would grip every clan. Sunset was not a time for rest. It was the beginning of a nightly siege, a desperate scramble for safety against the coming tide of darkness. Their only fortress was height. Every night, they would retreat to the trees or the high ledges of rocky outcrops, spaces inaccessible to the hulking predators that owned the ground. Imagine spending every night of your life perched precariously in a tree, huddled together for warmth, listening to the sounds from the blackness below, the growls, the screams, the sounds of a hunt tand, praying the dawn would come. Food was a constant, dangerous struggle. Without fire, there was no cooking. Every meal was eaten raw. This meant they were expert scavengers, shadowing the great predators and then rushing in to steal what they could. Using crude stone tools, they would frantically hack away chunks of meat and smash open bones for the nutrient-rich marrow inside. This raw food diet took a tremendous physical toll. Raw meat is incredibly tough, filled with sinew and connective tissue that required hours of powerful chewing, leading to extreme tooth wear and fractures. And the danger wasn't just in the toughness, it was in the microbes. Every raw meal was a game of Russian roulette with invisible pathogens and parasites that could sicken and kill. But the biggest cost of a raw diet was energy. Digesting uncooked food requires a huge amount of metabolic power, demanding a large, energy-hungry gut. This is known as the expensive tissue hypothesis. You can have a big gut, or you can have a big brain, but you can't afford the energy for both. For 1,000,000 years, our evolution was held hostage by our stomachs. Social life was also constrained by the dark. The campfire is our primordial living room, the center of community. Without it, How did they bond? They would have huddled close for warmth and protection, relying on physical touch and grooming, much like other primates. But the complex transfer of knowledge, the telling of stories, the planning of a hunt, all of this was crammed into the precious hours of daylight. Toolmaking, a skill vital for their survival, could only be taught and practiced when there was enough light to see. The darkness didn't just bring danger, it brought an end to productivity, learning, and cultural transmission. For over 1 million years, this was the rhythm of human life. A frantic day of survival followed by a long night of terror and cold. Humanity was trapped, unable to take the next great evolutionary leap. Then, one day, everything changed. It didn't happen with an invention, but with an act of unimaginable bravery. Fire was not created, it was captured. Perhaps after a lightning strike or from a volcanic flow, a lone clan found a tree burning in the aftermath. Instead of fleeing the terrifying heat, one of them dared to approach it. They discovered that a piece of this celestial power could be carried. The first taming of fire was likely an accident, but keeping it alive became the single most important task the clan had. A smoldering ember became their most precious possession, a living thing that had to be fed, nurtured, and protected from the rain. The role of firekeeper would have been the first specialized job in human history. And with that one flickering flame, the world was reborn. The tyranny of the night was broken. The campfire became a fortress of light and warmth, a magical barrier that the great predators, instinctively afraid of flame, would not cross. For the first time in 1 million years, they were not huddling in fear. They were safe. The night no longer belonged to the monsters. The second revolution happened at mealtime. When a piece of raw meat accidentally fell into the fire, they made the most important culinary discovery of all time. Cooking? Cooking is a form of pre-digestion. It uses the heat of the fire to break down tough fibers and proteins before the food ever enters the body, making it easier to chew and digest. Suddenly, the vast energy budget once reserved for their gut was liberated. This surplus of calories and nutrients was redirected to the most expensive organ of all, the brain. This is not a metaphor, it's a biological reality. The invention of cooking directly fueled the explosive growth of the human brain, paving the way for complex language, abstract thought, and everything that makes us who we are. The social world was transformed. The night was no longer a time of silent fear, but a second day. The campfire became the heart of the community, where tools were refined, plans were laid, and for the first time, stories could be told. This extended social time strengthened bonds and accelerated the transmission of culture. Fire literally gave our ancestors more time to think. Finally, fire gave them the world. With a portable source of heat and light, they were no longer tethered to the warm climate of Africa. They could survive the cold winters of the north. They could explore deep caves, using torches to push into a world of absolute darkness that had been closed to them forever. Fire was the technology that allowed humanity to inherit the earth. So, when we look back at the dawn of humanity, we see that the story is not just one of a world cleaved in two. the time before fire and the time after. Before, we were hunted, huddled in the dark, our evolution held in check by the simple energy cost of a raw meal. After, we became the masters of the flame. We conquered the night, unlocked the full potential of our minds, and built the foundations of community. Every city, every book, every starlit journey we have ever taken was made possible by that first brave ancestor who dared to capture a flame. And in doing so, pulled humanity out of the dark